Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review, we are looking at the new Marvel Legends Shang-Chi, or Shang-Chi, which is the way they're saying it now. And this is a movie figure, and so obviously it's going to be pretty decent. Most of them are. We're going to talk about that, but before we get even into that, I want to ask you guys, how do you pronounce his name? I've always heard everyone say Shang-Chi, which is obviously a very American way of doing it, but now they're calling him Shang-Chi for the movies. But it's my understanding from my studies of Chinese language that it would be pronounced Shang-Chi. So I'm curious if you guys know the correct way to pronounce it, if maybe you are Chinese, or maybe you guys just have some insight. I'm curious if you have any input on that. But there is some stuff to talk about for this guy that's not about the language. So let's go ahead and get him off the stand and take a closer look. This guy stands just about 16.5 centimeters, which makes him pretty close to, well, just shy of 6.5 inches, which is pretty much your standard height for this scale. That makes him kind of tall, but all Marvel Legends are upscaled just a tiny bit from true 1/12 scale, so I think that's okay. Aesthetically speaking, this guy looks pretty good. He's got some texture on his pants. I think the sculpt for the pants is pretty nice. Sculpt for the shoes is really nice. I like that a lot. And then the paintwork and sculpt work for his shirt is also really, really well done. Lots of detail in there. It's basically what you would expect from any of the Marvel MCU figures, not Marvel MCU. And then the head sculpt. I've heard some people complain. I think for a Marvel Legends figure, this one's pretty good. The paints are pretty clean. Like, yeah, it could be a better paint job, and the sculpt could be a little better, I suppose. But for the price point, I think this is going to be just fine. I don't see any reason to complain about that. It's alright. This ear is kind of mushed on mine, but otherwise it's pretty darn good. Paint job on the face is really clean. Could be more detailed, but it's nice. I don't have any problems with it. So we're going to go ahead and just say it's a 9 out of 10 for the aesthetic. It's a really darn good release for Hasbro. As far as accessories go, we get the 2 gripping hands that come out in the package, 2 style pose hands, and then 2 more style pose hands. No fist hands, that's interesting. No rings, that's interesting. And then we also do get his power pole, which is just a power pole. So accessory wise, 5 out of 10. Shouldn't he have some fists? Am I wrong? I didn't watch the movie yet, but shouldn't he have some fists and the rings that go on his wrists, forearms? I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. You guys can let me know in the comments section below. And we're not going to do a question of the day if you didn't notice, because there's a bunch of things I'm asking you guys already, so I'm not gonna bother. But if you want to, here, well, okay, fine. You asked for it. Did you see the movie and did you like it? There you go. Alright, that's the question of the day. Now, as far as the articulation goes, they've done a few things that are kind of interesting. One is that the head is on a ball peg. I've been saying for a while now they need to make this bottom ball peg bigger. It doesn't have to be bigger than the top one since they use a standard ball peg for up here, but the bottom one needs to be bigger, and they finally did that, and you can see how much play you get on that joint. It's so much better. This is exactly what I've been describing for, it seems like years at this point. Probably has been. But you get really nice range going up, going down, leaning side to side, and you can do combinations with this joint that you can't do with the other joint. It's so much more natural. And if you do it right, you get really good range out of it. They could have gotten even more, but they already have a decent amount. Like, that looks up fine. It looks so much more natural. It's easier to produce. There's just nothing wrong with this joint. It could be a little better, but it's freaking good. That's how they need to do all of their neck joints. Everybody should be doing neck joints like that at this point. For the shoulders, it's your standard ball hinge rotation there. Horizontal that way, bicep swivel is fine. Double jointed elbow, you get the black dot in there, but it does work. And then for the wrist, we have a swivel and a hinge. The gripping hands do not have the correct hinges. The horizontal hinge, it should be vertical. That kind of sucks. Ab crunch on this guy. I don't know why they keep sculpting him this way, but they did. So it's got a very harsh edge right there, which makes him look pregnant. Let me move that out of the way. So I hate the way they do that. This has a very angular sculpt, but they did continue the texturing and the paintwork through, so that's pretty good. Going forward works well enough. Same issue back here, even worse. But the articulation does work. Waist twist is a waist twist. I definitely would have preferred they figured out, and I know this would have been a budget issue. But if they could have left this all one piece, like a soft piece, so that this was actually connected to the top and rotated with him, that would have been way better looking. But you do get your waist twist. Hips go out to the side pretty well. Not as far as some other ones like Iron Man can do, but that's okay. Going forward, pretty well. That's fine. Going back, you get a little bit of range. These are very loose hips though. They are very loose, borderline floppy. They're not completely flaccid, but it's getting there. So be aware, very, very loose hips. Thigh swivel is fine. Double jointed knee looks fine from the front. You can see it's huge though, and if you use the top joint, you get very little range. And if you use the bottom joint, you get more range than anybody deserves to get out of one of these knee joints. And so that gives you a full 180 basically, but his knees are chunky and squared off and weird looking. Not a big fan of that. There are some things they could have done to make that better. Practically speaking, this is about what you would expect for baggy pants like this, so I'm not going to knock them for it. For the ankle, you don't get a ton of range going forward, but it's not bad. You do get tons going back, and you do get your ankle rocker, which isn't at too steep of an angle. I imagine most people will be able to use that, so that's okay. So articulation on this guy, it's nothing impressive. The neck is good, but other things aren't as good as they could be, so I'm going to just round it down to an 8 out of 10. It's not impressive. It's just fine. The only thing that's actually impressive is the neck. So final verdict on this guy, it's a fine release. I've heard some people saying that it's terrible, and I've heard other people saying that it's really good, and I don't know. It seems like it's really good in some ways and average in others, so I don't see anything that's particularly bad about it other than the loose hips. So I'm going to give it a final verdict of 8 out of 10. I think it's better than your average Marvel Legends. That's almost always true for the movie releases, so that's pretty much what I expected, and I think that's probably what you guys were expecting too, and that's what it is. So there it is, guys. Let me know what you thought about the figure in the comment section below. Let me know what you thought about the video by giving it a thumbs up or a thumbs down, whichever one you prefer. And if you haven't subscribed, you might want to. I have new videos almost every single day, and thousands already on the channel, so make sure you come back for all of that, and in the meantime, keep collecting.